Would you like to get coffee sometime? Emily remembered the surprise she felt in that moment. She had not expected that question. Not after so many years of living quietly on her own. Part of her felt flattered. Another part felt frightened. Because saying yes would mean opening a door she had closed long ago. So she smiled gently and shook her head. I appreciate that, she said kindly. But I think my life is a little too busy these days. Daniel nodded with understanding. But she noticed the small flicker of disappointment in his eyes before he turned to leave. Since that evening, Emily had wondered more than once whether she had made the right choice. The memory of him appeared gently in her mind. He had first walked into the bookstore about 6 months ago. At the time, Emily had thought nothing of it. Customers came and went every day. Some stayed for minutes, others for hours. But Daniel had been different. He didn't rush. He wandered slowly through the aisles, carefully examining the shelves. Sometimes he would pause, pick up a book, and read the back cover thoughtfully before placing it back. Eventually, he approached the counter holding a worn poetry collection. He looked at her with a curious expression and asked a question she hadn't expected. Do you think poetry still matters today? Emily remembered smiling politely. Stories always matter, she had replied. What began as a simple conversation turned into something much longer. 20 minutes passed without either of them noticing. They talked about literature, about old novels, about how stories have a strange way of comforting people during lonely times. After that day, Daniel returned often. Sometimes twice a week. Sometimes just once. Sometimes he came to buy a book. Sometimes he simply wandered the aisles. And sometimes he came to talk. Over time, their conversations grew longer, more personal, more meaningful. Emily noticed something about Daniel very quickly. He truly listened. When she spoke, he paid attention in a way most people rarely did. He didn't glance at his phone. He didn't rush the conversation. He simply listened. Patiently, thoughtfully, present. And without realizing it, Emily began looking forward to those visits. She would notice when the bookstore door opened. And for just a moment, she would wonder if it was him. But she never admitted this to anyone. Especially not to Liam. One evening, after the bookstore had closed, Daniel lingered near the counter. He held a book in his hands but seemed distracted, like he was deciding whether or not to say something. Finally, he spoke. Ever since his father passed away nearly 4 years ago, the bond between mother and son had grown even stronger. They had supported each other through the hardest moments, shared long conversations late at night when the silence of the house felt too heavy. Grief had changed both of them, but it had also brought them closer. Emily had devoted everything she had to raising Liam. Even before her husband passed away, she had always placed her son first. She worked long hours at the bookstore, skipped vacations, set aside her own dreams without hesitation. And she never regretted it. Not once. Because Liam was the greatest joy of her life. Watching him grow into a kind, thoughtful man had made every sacrifice worth it. But tonight, something about that message made her uneasy. Her phone remained silent. Emily sighed softly and reached for the kettle. If there was one thing she had learned over the years, it was that tea helped calm worried thoughts. Within a few minutes, steam began rising from a mug in her hands. She carried it to the small wooden table near the window and sat down. Outside, rain slid down the glass in thin racing streams. Emily watched them absent-mindedly, tracing the paths of water as they curved and merged together. Her thoughts drifted. Maybe Liam had been offered a new job. The possibility made her smile at first. But then another thought followed quickly behind it. What if the job was in another city? The idea sent a small ache through her chest. Of course she wanted him to succeed. She wanted him to chase every opportunity life offered. But the thought of the house becoming even quieter than it already was, that was harder to imagine. Emily took a slow sip of her tea. The warmth spread through her hands. As she stared out into the rainy night, her thoughts wandered somewhere she tried not to visit too often. To someone she tried not to think about too much. Daniel Harper. Was he sick? Had there been an accident? A mother's mind could travel through 100 worries in a matter of seconds. Emily quickly dried her hands on the dish towel and reached for the phone. Her heart was beating slightly faster now. She unlocked the screen. The message appeared. Mom, I want to tell you something tonight. Please don't be surprised. Emily stared at the words. They seemed simple, but something about them felt heavier than a normal message. This wasn't just casual conversation. There was meaning behind it. She read the sentence again. And then again. Mom, I want to tell you something tonight. Please don't be surprised. The quiet kitchen suddenly felt smaller. What does that mean? She murmured softly to herself. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment before she began typing. Of course. Is everything okay? She pressed send. Then she waited. For a few seconds, nothing happened. The screen remained still. Then suddenly, the 3 small typing dots appeared. Emily watched them closely. Her stomach tightened slightly. The dots blinked once, twice, 3 times. And then, they disappeared. No reply. Emily frowned. That's strange, she whispered. Liam had started typing. Why had he stopped? She placed the phone back down on the counter, but kept glancing toward it every few seconds, expecting the screen to light up again. But it remained dark. Outside, the rain grew heavier. Drops tapped steadily against the windows, creating a soft rhythmic sound that echoed through the quiet house. In the distance, thunder rolled gently across the sky. Not loud, not frightening, just deep enough to remind her that a storm had settled over the city. Emily walked slowly around the kitchen, trying to ignore the uneasy feeling that had begun forming in her chest. Liam had always been a thoughtful son, responsible, kind, careful with his words. Her movements were slow and familiar. Rinse, dry, place the plate neatly in the cupboard. It was a routine she had repeated thousands of times over the years. Simple dinners had become a habit for her. Soup, bread, sometimes a small salad. Nothing complicated. Cooking elaborate meals for one person never seemed worth the effort. And besides, she had grown comfortable with simplicity. For a long time now, Emily had been living a quiet life. Predictable, orderly, safe. Her days followed a rhythm that rarely changed. She would wake up early each morning, prepare a small breakfast, and head to the bookstore where she had worked for nearly 2 decades. She loved the bookstore. It was one of the few places where silence didn't feel lonely. Shelves lined with stories. The soft rustle of turning pages. The occasional conversation with customers about favorite authors or beloved novels. Books had always been her refuge. They had carried her through difficult times. Through loss. Through grief. Through long nights when sleep simply refused to come. After work, she would return home, prepare a simple dinner, tidy the house, and spend an hour or 2 reading before going to bed. Some people might have called it a lonely life. But Emily had convinced herself that it was enough. Quiet was peaceful. Predictability was safe. After everything she had been through, safety mattered. But tonight, something about that small vibration on the counter disrupted that calm. Emily glanced toward her phone. The screen lit up, casting a pale glow across the countertop. A new message. From Liam. Her son. Emily paused. Liam rarely sent messages this late in the evening. He usually called earlier in the day or stopped by on weekends. Seeing his name appear at this hour instantly sent a ripple of concern through her chest. Her mind began racing through possibilities before she even picked up the phone. Was he okay? Had something happened at work? Intro channel line. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. Your support helps us share more amazing stories. Before we begin tonight's story, take just a moment to support the channel. If you enjoy emotional stories that remind us how powerful family, love, and second chances can be, make sure you subscribe, leave a like on this video, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next story. Because the story you're about to hear tonight is not just about a quiet evening. It's about a message that arrived unexpectedly, a conversation that changed everything, and a moment that reminded someone that even after loss, even after years of loneliness, life can still surprise you in the most beautiful ways. Sometimes we believe our story has already been written. Sometimes we convince ourselves that the most important chapters are behind us. But every once in a while, someone comes along and gently reminds us that the story isn't over yet. And tonight's story begins on a quiet, rainy evening in the city of Portland. Emily Carter noticed the message almost immediately. Her phone vibrated softly against the smooth marble surface of the kitchen counter, creating a gentle humming sound that cut through the stillness of the house. It wasn't loud. It wasn't urgent. But in a home that had grown so quiet over the years, even the smallest sound could feel important. Outside, rain fell steadily over the city. The streets of Portland glistened beneath the glow of streetlights, reflecting long ribbons of silver across the wet pavement. Cars passed occasionally, their tires whispering against the soaked roads. Inside Emily's home, everything felt warm and calm. The kitchen lights cast a soft golden glow across the room. The scent of tomato soup still lingered faintly in the air from dinner, mixing with the comforting smell of toasted bread. Emily stood at the sink, drying the last plate from the evening meal.